and Mike Benton. Mike, what is your official title?
I'm staff representative for the BCU in the West Kootenays.
In the West Kootenays. So basically, Mike will be addressing any union related issues, and we have a structure for this. Invited the employer to attend as well. Had no idea that the employer organization, the gentleman that I called, they are involved in so many things in this province. It's incredible, including the redevelopment of Cole Harbour in Vancouver and Nanaimo Harbour. They own all those marinas, and so it just shows you how connected the world is. Unfortunately, there was nobody from management or the employer that is here, unless I'm missing that. So is there anyone here from the employer side? Okay. So the structure for today's meeting is as follows. Obviously, we all were notified of the BC Labor Relations Board order that came down on December 27th, and we've been spending a lot of time going through it. I'm trying to understand how this is supposed to work, and so we will do the following today. The first thing is that I was going to give the union and the employer an opportunity, like 5 minutes or so, just to speak to how we ended up here today and how this order ended up being issued. And then what we will do is that we'll circulate to everybody, because maybe some of you have not seen the exactly the terms under which you could access the ferry once the additional job action starts. So, and then we'll go through every point, and we will ask for an explanation. Obviously, we only have union representation here on how that particular item is supposed to be operationalized. And I understand there's still matters before the LRB, is that correct?
Yes.
So today there were matters before the LRB trying to flesh out how these things are supposed to be operationalized. After each one, I'll ask for questions on that point. We'll go through them all. We will have at the end, we will have an open mic where anyone can share their story, their comments, their feedback. The only thing I ask is that we be respectful. This is a very emotionally charged situation that we're dealing with, and I know I've heard from some of you how potentially impacted that you and your life and your livelihood may be. So let's be respectful, and we will start first. Mike, please, if you could give us a thumbnail as to how we ended up here.
Sure, well, I'm happy to do that.
From the union perspective.
Yes, from the union perspective. First of all, thank you for inviting me and my committee members to be here. Sorry to be meeting you all under these circumstances, but I'm here for one reason only tonight, and that's to give you guys information and to try to address some of your concerns. We know this is a difficult situation for everybody. We don't take this lightly. What I'm going to do is just give you a very brief explanation as to how we got to this point, and then I'll go right into sort of explaining what you can expect to see over the next little while here. So I negotiate the collective agreements for a number of different ferry operations throughout the province. We just recently negotiated the contracts for Waterbridge ferries on the Arrow Lakes and Waterbridge equipment up in Francois Lake near Burns Lake. And these three companies, those two Waterbridge companies and WPM, have always sort of operated as a group, and we've always negotiated with them in sort of a coordinated way. So over the past 8 months, we've been in negotiations. Our contract expired in April, and we've been trying to meet with these employers to renegotiate our collective agreements. Our members over the last 5 years have not had a chance to catch up on all the cost of living increases that most other people in the province have been able to deal with over the last few years. So we had some catching up to do. So we've been in negotiations, or trying to be in negotiations with these companies over the summer. Western Pacific Marine chose to make themselves unavailable. They wanted to kind of be at the end of the line. So we ended up negotiating with the water bridge companies through the summer and getting a deal done in September. And then WPM finally agreed to meet with us. And when they did, they made it clear that they were not going to agree to the same deal that the rest of the province did. So that put us in a bit of a bind. We had always insisted that all three companies agree to the same terms. That's how we kind of maintain some labor peace in the province by trying to make those collective agreements equal. Western Pacific Marine has said, no, we're going to do our own thing. We're not going to agree to that same contract. So that put us in conflict, and we've been trying every way possible to try to get an agreement done with Western Pacific Marine. Finally, in November, we took the dramatic step of starting strike action. And I'm sure you've all heard about the strike at Balfour for the Osprey Ferry. That's been going on now for 8 weeks, and just like here, when we start a strike, there's an essential service order that's developed by the Labor Board, which dictates what the minimum amount of service is. And just like here, there's people at Balfour that are not happy about the restrictions, but the Labor Board determines what those levels of service have to be. Some of you may know that 5 years ago we also had a strike at Balfour, and during that strike, the Harrop and Glade ferries were agreed upon by the union and the employer to be essential, and that there would be no disruption of service. And the reason that happened is because we believed that we could simply take action at the Balfour ferry, and we would be able to force the employer to get a deal done, and that's what happened 5 years ago. So this time around, this strike started in Balfour, same idea. We weren't going to mess with Harrop and Glade. We understand how it's much more impactful here than it is at the Balfour, because there's alternate routes around the Balfour crossing. But a few weeks ago, the employer applied for increased service at Balfour, basically weakening our strike by allowing extra sailings and weekend sailings, and that was detrimental to our strike. And so in response to that, we made the application to the board to say, okay, well, now we want to be able to take action at Harrop and Glade. And I know that's not going to be a popular thing for anybody, but this is part of our right as the workers on those ferries to withdraw our services to try to get a better deal done. And like I say, I want to be absolutely clear how much we respect the fact that might not matter to any of you here, but that is a legal right that the workers have on those ferries, is to be able to say, look, if we can't get a deal done with the employer, we have a right to withdraw our services. And so that's the decision that's been made by those workers. The crews at all of the sites took a vote on going on strike, and it was a 98% strike vote, 98% in favor of taking strike action if necessary in order to get a deal done. So after 8 weeks, we've decided that this is the necessary step for us to do, and we are hopeful that by taking this action, that the employer recognizes the need to get a deal done quickly. We're hoping that this strike doesn't have to happen. If it does have to happen, we're hoping it ends in 1 day. That's our goal here. So we're trying to make this as difficult as possible for the employer, as expensive as possible for the employer, to motivate them to come and get a deal done. So, and again, we're only trying to get the same deal that everybody else in the province has already got. So it's frustrating to have one employer that just thinks that they can sort of deviate from that process. Just give me 1 second, then I'll happy to answer your questions. So so that's a little bit of the history here. We don't take this step lightly. We've had to do it because we've been on strike for 8 weeks, and we feel like we need to increase the pressure on the employer to get a deal done. And we will be working diligently day and night to try to get a deal done. We are open to mediation with the employer, mediation with the Labor Board, and we have new proposals ready to provide to them when we get into some kind of meaningful discussions. So I want to assure you that every step, every action is being taken to try to get us to a deal as quickly as possible, and hopefully before anything has to happen here at all. Now, what to expect in the next little while here. Effective basically Monday, yesterday, we were in a legal strike position to start action here. We talked to our crews, and we made the decision not to take any action until after the holidays were over, so there won't be any strike action until after the new year. And realistically, we're probably talking about the 3rd or 4th of January before anything will take place. What will it look like if we do have to start this action? Well, here's what's been sort of discussed and agreed upon over the last couple of days. You'll know for Glade, if you've seen the essential service order, that the employer is allowed to do 16 round-trip crossings.
So Mike, this is where I think we should hand out this, give everyone a chance to read it, and then we can get into the particulars.
That's fine.
And then we can address all the questions as each thing comes up,
Okay.
and then do general stuff after. Would that work for you?
Sure.
Okay.
But Andy, he should explain.
Yeah,
He should,
maybe-
he
yeah,
should
I-
explain before we get those papers.
Yeah.
I wanna hear from him
Yeah.
before I get the papers.
Yeah, we got it, and the key thing is that I just wanted to confirm that some people here maybe don't know exactly what the items are, so we'll hand these out.
But
He will explain, we'll just hand these out so people can look at this while he's explaining, and then we'll get into the individual. Andy, if you can start handing those out, please.
Did you wanna ask that quick question?
Yeah, go
back
ahead,
there
yeah,
before we start?
there was a hand back in the back.
Okay, I'm a former employee, and I was involved in payroll management at WPM.
Yeah.
And I was on negotiating committees for some time. And I like to really.
Okay, guys, let's pay attention here.
Now, I understand, now, I've been gone for almost 10 years, but I'm trying to remember, see, every time the Osprey does a sale of WPM,
Right.
and every time the Glade Ferry is out of operation, they're gonna get a deal.
That's not quite right, but I'm happy to give you some details on that.
Okay,
What happens is WPM has a contract to run the service, and what happens is if they miss sailings for any reason, mechanical reasons or strike, they get fines for a certain number of missed sailings. So on the Osprey, if they miss a round trip sailing, there's a fine for that. On the Hairpin Glade, if they have periods of time, like I think if they have an hour or 2 hours, if there's no sailings, they get fined for that. So there is some financial penalties for the employer, yes. Okay. So let me just give a quick overview, and then people can ask whatever questions that they want out of there.
Okay.
So there's 16 round trip crossings a day. The employer will establish when those crossings are. So they get to dictate when those round trip crossings are. And those are crossings that are for the general public to get across. What they've told us today is it will be 8 round trip crossings in the morning between 6:30 and 8 o'clock. And there will be 8 round trip crossings in the afternoon between 4 and 5:30. Let me double check the time. It might be 4:30 and 5:30. Thank you. 5:30 to 4 o'clock to 5:30, right? So those are the times that the employer has set. And during those times, at each of those groups of times, there will be 8 round trip crossings that for anybody that needs to cross. Outside of those times, there is the essential service crossings, which are listed in the order, and it covers like a very specific set of people. It's school children or people who work in schools that are necessary to run schools. It is medical professionals. It is people who have medical appointments or procedures or treatments that have to be accommodated. And of course, emergency vehicles and things of that nature. And so what will happen outside of those regular sailing times is that if you want to cross the ferry, you'll be required to contact Western Pacific Marine. You'll have to explain what the purpose of your crossing is, and they will either grant you access or not. And then they will notify the crews on the boat that this person is allowed to do an essential crossing. One second. Yeah, certainly.
Sorry, it's just busy.
Okay, all right. I've been asked to repeat that, so I'll go over it one more
Okay,
time.
guys, let's be quiet so everyone can hear the answers here. And we'll watch I'm gonna stand up and watch who's holding the hands up. Okay, go ahead.
All right. So again, there's gonna be 8 round trip crossings in the morning, and there will be 8 round trip crossings in the afternoon. Those crossings are first come, first served, whoever can get across. Outside of those times, if you want to get on the ferry, you're gonna need to contact Western Pacific Marine and explain the reason for your crossing and explain that you meet one of the criteria on that list. And if you do, then they will notify the crew that you are able to cross. And in that case, there will be an on-demand special crossing for that person or for whatever group of people are there that meet that criteria. That is the order from the labor board, that's how they've dictated this is gonna go. And so the crews, the union, the employer are all responsible for following those guidelines. And and some of that's logistically is gonna be challenging, but we're working on how to make that happen.
Okay, there's a hand, okay, there's there, let's start here and then we'll go across, right there, please. And
So
there.
I work for IH. IH is well aware of this situation, and they told me all I have to do is provide my badge. They dealt with Belfer Ferry because we had a nurse work on proper day who had to work in Pasco. I have pre-printed my schedule for you guys. I work night shift, and I'm a single mom. So I have to call. What if no one answers? I
So,
can't just not
okay.
show up to work.
Let me put your mind at ease, okay, you're not gonna have a problem, you're listed on the essential service order as a,
I have to call.
let me just finish, okay? That is what the procedure is.
Okay.
Now, Western Pacific Marine has told us that they're trying to develop some kind of a database where you might be able to contact them and get listed as somebody who has the ability to cross regularly, okay? But that's a system that hasn't been developed yet, but that's something that they say they're going to do. But until that happens, this is what the procedure is, okay?
Well, I start nights tomorrow night.
Well, there's not gonna be a strike tomorrow night, so we don't have
Well,
to
no,
worry.
but I start nights
I
and
know.
I have free, but, so I can get across, but can I come home? I need
Yes.
to sleep.
Yeah, anybody who has the right to cross as an essential crossing also has the right to return. So, now, I'll just say something that I think will avoid some confusion here. At the Osprey strike, one of the categories of people were people who had medical appointments, and that applies here as well. And school teachers, the same sort of list of categories. What we've asked people to do, and some people don't like it, but we've had to have some way of policing this, is we're saying, look, if you're a school teacher and you work at a school, please get a letter from your school to say, yeah, I'm a school teacher and I work here, okay? If you are going for medical appointments, obviously anybody can say, I'm going to a medical appointment. So what we're asking for is that you have either, if you could print out a copy of something that shows you have an appointment, or at least.
That's a violation.
Okay, so Mike, this is why I wanted to go through each point at a time and deal with that one.
Sure.
And answer questions, because we're just gonna get into questions. So let's do this, we're gonna everyone's gonna get a chance to ask their questions, so just bear with us. So the order says.
Andy, just before you go, sorry, and it's just really specific to what Mike said
Yeah.
earlier about the 8 crossings.
Yeah.
When you first said it, did you mention times? I just missed it. I wasn't
Yeah,
sure if you
6:30
mentioned times.
6:30 until 8 in the morning,
Okay,
and then in the afternoon it is
4 to 5:30.
4 to 5:30, thank you.
4 to 5.
And this is said by the employer, not by the union.
Yeah, but they haven't listed a schedule yet, so that's great to hear.
Okay, we don't know anything about that. The order says the employer sets the schedule. That's what's in the order. The order's registered with the Supreme Court of British Columbia as an order of the court. And that's the way it's gonna work. So we're gonna go with item number 1 is going to be the Glade Ferry will run 16 round-trip cruisings per day at times to be determined by the employer. The union told you just now, union representative, what they believe the times are. Has there been a formal schedule released?
Yes.
And could that be circulated?
Sure, we just got off the phone at the labor board here at 3 o'clock this afternoon, and I have an email that I can send that has those times listed.
Okay, could you send that to me, then
Yes.
I'll get it out to the community.
Certainly.
Thank you. On the point of the times of the 16 runs, questions, go.
So just to clarify, if you're not under the essential people and you aren't able to make it in time for that up until 5:30, or you aren't able to get on during that time period because it's full, you are then denied the right to shelter for that evening?
You're denied the right to cross, yes.
You're denied the right to shelter for that evening, okay, thank you.
Okay, next.
So my shifts, Councilor Gar, shift work, 5 AM I gotta do my job.
Yeah.
My employer's already shorthanded, I will lose my job, I will lose
Yeah.
my house, I will lose everything. So I think doing all this is just selfish, massive selfishness. And support, no support from me, I have
Don't
zero.
make it right.
Okay, so thank you. Let's stick to the 16 crossings, go.
You're talking about people getting on the ferry all this time during those 2 times. But if you're walking, it wouldn't matter, I guess, if you were caught on the other side, you could just walk on if the thing was full of cars, no?
Oh, if
If it was full
If
of
it's,
cars,
if it's the essential crossings, or sorry, the scheduled crossings,
yeah,
we're gonna be encouraging people to walk on if possible, so that we get more people on there. But outside of those times, nobody goes across unless they're one of the essential people that's listed.
How many
Okay,
foot
so we're,
passengers are allowed?
just wait, we've got
Okay.
hands up. You've asked the question, is this pertaining to this crossing time? Go ahead.
Crossing time, so
Yeah.
if you're essential, can you take people with you in your vehicle?
Technically, you're not supposed to, but I mean, we're not gonna be ridiculous about it. But I mean, if you show up with a carload of 20 people saying, hey, they're all coming with me, we're gonna have an issue with that.
Okay, next question right there, please, yep.
I just wanted to say, if I'm an essential worker, however, and I'm going across, I can't phone and say, hey, I wanna cross at 2 for work, can we fill the ferry? We can't do that?
No.
Okay.
Okay, we're going back now, right there, yep. You,
The other question is in the morning, there's a lot of school kids that go across. Parents take them across.
Yep.
Now, do they have a right to come back?
Yes,
The next question is, ICBC says that you can't pick up a bunch of kids in your car and take them to school.
okay.
So how are you gonna accommodate that?
We're not gonna
Because
accommodate that.
it'll be filled up first thing in the morning.
Okay.
Nobody would get to work.
okay, that's another issue to address. You've had your question, we're going back. Yes, Peter?
When you have a medical appointment.
We're gonna talk about medical coming up.
Well,
Okay,
I'm talking about the crossing,
okay, but we're gonna talk about medical appointments.
but I'm talking about
Okay, go ahead, Peter.
If I have, and I'm gonna say, if I have a medical appointment.
Yep.
And I show you the papers, and I cross, do I have a right to return on that, without having, to have a 6:30 or whatever?
Yes.
How do I do that then?
So one thing that we established with the labor board today is that throughout the day, there will be monitors, there. The operators of the ferry are gonna be operating the ferry, and that's their business, that's their job, that's their duty. There will be monitors, either somebody from the employer or somebody from the union, that will be on site to entertain requests. But the best process is to contact WPM, get pre-approval. They will phone the vessel and say, this person with this license number is coming across at this time. That's the easiest way to do it.
But
Okay.
if
Peter?
I haven't finished, but if I give you a piece of paper and say you have an appointment, and I come back with the same piece of paper, say I had an appointment, I have the right to cross that.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's.
Thanks,
at least
Peter.
that's
Okay, back there,
clarified.
go ahead, please.
I just wanted to clarify, if you're a non-exempted worker, so you go over, you make it in the six, that eight thirty slot, you get a slot, you go to work. You get delayed for any reason, and you come home, after 5:30, or you can't make it in line, that the union is actually gonna deny you the right to go home.
That's what the essential service order requires, yes.
Okay, there was another hand here. Yes, please.
So you were discussing about having to call for the crossings?
Yeah.
I have 3 sometimes 4 kids going to school, so I cross in the morning and back, and I cross in the afternoon and back. I have to call 4 times a day, 5 days a week?
No, I think, like I said, I think the employer is planning on having a database where you'll be able to register. And then the folks on the vessel will have a list of people that are sort of pre-approved for those crossings.
Okay, Eric?
But we're waiting for them to set that up. At this time, the only process is you either show up and plead your case, hopefully with some kind of proof, or you contact the employer for authorization.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Given that there's overlap, especially in the morning time between like, non-exempt workers and the school bus and school runs. So the amount of people who are allowed on the ferry, the non-exempt workers and the exempt workers are gonna be taking the same slots of the ferry, and so the travel times in the morning are going to be taken up with the essential, workers and trips, right? So the scheduled crossings are no longer going to serve the community who doesn't fall
that would be something to raise with the employer, because they set these times. So, they could change those times if they want to.
Yeah,
but,
I think that's really important, because in the conversations I had just in the last hour, is if the employer can set these schedules and we see that it's not working, then that's something that needs to be addressed. So just wait a second. It's not working within the terms of the order, okay, that's it. Okay, go ahead, please, yes.
Yeah, I noticed that, first of all, you said that you used to consider the Glade Ferry an essential service because it blatantly is. It's the only way to get on and off Glade. And secondly, you also said it's not essential to have access to food and water. So, how do you make those things work?
So, listen, I'll go into an explanation here, and I know it's not gonna be satisfying for anybody, but what, the word essential gets tossed around in a number of different ways relating to different things. So this question comes up all the time when people say, hey, I'm a grocery store worker, I was declared essential during COVID, or I'm a healthcare worker, so I'm obviously essential, I have to get to where I wanna go. There's a different definition of essential at the labor board.
It comes down to the fact that there's no
Okay,
other
please
alternative
order.
route and there's no services here.
Okay, just
So I will
order.
I'll continue my explanation so that for those that wanna understand why this has been ruled on the way it was. The definition of essential under the labor board rules means services necessary to prevent serious and immediate risk to health, safety, and welfare, okay? It really is a different standard than what you're used to under the public health orders. It means what's necessary to prevent people from dying, basically, okay?
Freezing in the cars overnight.
Well, so you should understand then that that presentations were made at the labor board. There was members of the community that were invited to give their testimony. And the labor board heard everybody's stories, and this is what they ruled on, okay? So this was their ruling as to what's essential. And I'll tell you one other thing, so the essential service order is something that is a living document that can be amended over time as problems are identified. But that, for the current time, that's the order that's been issued by the labor
Okay,
board.
we have a hand there, please. No, we have a hand there. Yep, go ahead.
I think you missed my point. My point was that the ferry is essential because it's the only way to access Glade. And you said that that's how you used to look at it. And my question would be, if it is not essential, which is what you're implying, how are you gonna get off Glade tonight?
Okay, so maybe you missed my point, okay? We don't make that determination, the board does. What I said to you earlier was that in previous negotiations, the union agreed to allow the Harrison Glade ferries to be left untouched.
Yep.
In this round of negotiations, because of how long it's gone on for, we are now exercising our right to
We're
withdraw our
going after
services.
that. We're going after that. We're taking it away from us.
But really, you haven't.
Guys,
been in
order,
negotiations
please.
very long.
Look, we're gonna, if we don't have order, we're not gonna continue here. The hands up over there, please.
So, I just need clarification. I can't get to work, and a lot of people can't, they're not gonna get on there, so they can't get to work, or they can't get back home. They manage to get to work, now they can't get back home. You can't get to work, I can't pay my mortgage, I'm gonna lose my mortgage, now I'm gonna be homeless. And that, you don't give it about that?
It's
Sorry,
not,
that homeless
it's
thing,
not fair to
that-
say that we don't give a shit about it, we do. But we are at a point, like I represent all of the workers at
You're putting us in
WPM.
that
He's gonna
position.
pawn.
There's so
He's
many
gonna
people
pawn.
Okay,
that
order,
can't work
please.
for their mortgage.
Okay, I think on the essential part, the bottom line is that this is very confusing to everybody. Because there's nobody in this room that doesn't think that the ferry is essential to Glade, right? We can all agree on that.
Then why go after it? if
So
you don't-
bottom line is that it's the LRB that made this order. It's not anybody else.
They put the application in.
And what we're trying to deal with here is how we're gonna live with this court order.
If I can't get on, I'm gonna use my card, nobody can get on.
We understand that.
I'll block it.
Okay,
Easy
okay,
as
let's move on. We're gonna move
I've
now
got a
to,
question.
no, just hold on. We're gonna move to
Are the ferry
people
workers still
with,
being paid? I wanna know if the ferry workers are still being paid during this time strike.
Yes.
They, like any essential workers who are forced to work, They get paid for the work that they do, yes.
So they get paid, but we don't.
Why is my job?
Okay, we're going to move to persons crossing for medical treatments appointments. Have we addressed that sufficiently?
No,
Okay, then we have more questions on this. Please, go ahead.
we have appointments that we waited a year for, there's 2 of us here that have them.
Yeah.
And we have to be there at like 8:30 in the morning, which means we have to displace these other people. If that's the case, how are we gonna do that? Are we just gonna break the line? Is, you know, I mean, is our car just gonna pull around and go on while they all wait and our kids don't get to school and they don't get to their jobs?
As somebody who's listed in the essential service order, you'll be allowed to cross, and that's all I can say.
How are we going to facilitate that without us busting the line?
Well, that's gonna be between you and Western Pacific Marine to figure out.
And they don't answer any of the phone calls?
Listen, like, you can laugh about that, but it's Western Pacific Marine that evaluates who's essential and who's not, and they direct the workers to take across who's essential and who's not. So you can laugh about that, but that's the reality, okay? So I'm just giving you the information, whether you like it or not.
Okay, could you explain, Mike, what's happening, in Balfour with medical appointment crossings? How does it work there?
So with medical crossings, there's an employer and a union monitor that go to each vehicle and currently and say, what's the purpose of your crossing? If it's for a medical appointment, can you show us some documentation? And if not, can you show us documentation on the way back to confirm it? And that's how we've been handling it at
Okay, so
Balfour
in this case, if they left early in the morning,
Yep.
there would be a sailing for them.
If you wanted to avoid that, if you came prior to 6:30, like came
Okay.
at 6 o'clock and said, listen, I'm essential, you would get across ahead of all of that
Okay.
morning's rigs.
And
that
then
they've
we'll
done.
be able to come back at the
Yes.
end of our procedures.
Yes.
and-
Yes.
Okay,
Okay,
that's
that one's
fine.
answered. Peter,
Yeah.
again, go ahead. On medical, please.
On medical,
Yep.
not only on the medical, but on all the issues. I've been on the union for many, many years, for the IWA and PPWC. We have never, ever went on the communities, because there are about 900 people in both communities. I'd say 30% of them are workers, and are union members. And you say, well, it's up to the employer to go ahead and say what is gonna be happening or not. But it was up to the union to go to the labor relations and say, hey, give these, on their backs, we want a negotiated, wage here. The union is not thinking of the people that are sick here, people that are our union. So when you say, go back to them and phone them, it's on your face, on your back, and shame on you for going against the elderly, the union itself, the union workers themselves. And you stand here and saying, go to the other end and complain to them. You are the ones that took it over there, and you wanted us to be
Okay.
under your gun.
Thanks, Peter. Peter.
No, it seems like, what is happening here, this union is trying to be like an Italian mafia. And put all these people at risk.
Peter, thank you. You made your point.
No, I didn't.
On the medical question, please. Yeah, please can't hear the question.
I'm a transplant person.
Yep.
And I have appointments regularly, but they're not documented. They're given to me over the phone. I don't have documentation. I also have blood tests that have to be done pre-surgery coming up. Matter of fact, I need one of those on next Monday. How do I get on the ferry for the blood test that I don't have paperwork for? Because they phone it into the clinic.
So if you speak with WPM, they will probably grant you access based on the
I don't even have
information.
a phone number for WPS.
Well, they're gonna be broadcasting
My first
information.
call is gonna be to human rights,
Yeah, sure.
and the second call is gonna be to my lawyer.
Okay.
Okay, so on medical,
Yes.
Thank you.
Identical.
Yeah.
I am a caregiver for my elderly parents. My mother took a spill right before Christmas, broke her wrist, pulled her ligaments in her leg, so she is not mobile at all. I also work for the school board, and I have school-age children, so yeah, I'll be part of that essential bit. But, I have to return back to work, and I also have to try and manage caring for my parents who live in Glade. I will be going in the morning to work, coming back and forth to take her to appointments. She's also diabetic, so because she can't administer her insulin, I have to come back on my lunch hour, which I'm trying to work out with my employer, to administer insulin, get back to my job in a timely fashion. So it's detrimental to her health, but it's also, I work with vulnerable people, because I work one-on-one with students that have to have me there. Tell me how, how is that going to be managed?
So my understanding is that with those circumstances, you would be granted access by Western
So I
Pacific
can
Rail.
just freely come and go as
You'll have to
my
arrange that,
schedule-
you'll have to arrange that with WPM to have, to be registered to have access, and then you'll be granted access.
Okay, there's a hand back there.
I just want to confirm some things quickly. So one, if somebody with a medical appointment turns up for one of these during the scheduled trip time, they will take up a slot on the ferry from somebody who does not have a medical trip. So I
Yep.
want to confirm that,
Yep.
okay? I also want to confirm that for people who are able to get some sort of written confirmation from their doctor or from the lab or from wherever they're going for their medical appointment.
Okay, order please, we can't hear the person speaking.
So I want to confirm that the people who are going to be assessing whether people can actually get to their appointments, are they medically trained? Are they able to actually determine the validity of these appointments? Are they going to be held responsible if care is withheld for people who need it? And I also want to ask, well, actually, I'll let you answer that one first.
Okay. No, our people are not medically trained. We're not going to be doing physical assessments on people or judging their diagnosis or anything like that. We're simply asking to get confirmation that you actually have an appointment. And here's the reason why. Like when this strike started in Balfour back in November, the first thing that happened was the community put out an email to everybody to say, all you gotta do is say you got a medical appointment and you're going across, end of story. So we had to go back to the labor board and say, look, this is not being taken seriously, it's being abused. And the labor board agreed that it is appropriate to request people to provide proof that they actually have an appointment. And we've been reasonable about that to say, look, we understand that not every time that can happen, but we actually have people just coming to say, yep, I got a medical appointment, go fuck yourself, I'm not gonna give you any more information than that. And we have the right to say, well, then you're not going on, okay? But if people come to us and say, look, this is my situation, I'm going to the doctor, this just happened, when I come back, I will bring a letter from the office to say, yeah, I was at an appointment. That's all we ask for, is some kind of.
Okay, so just hold on a sec. So Mike, with all due respect, that was not respectful comment. So please apologize for that, because otherwise you're gonna hear it back.
Sure. Well, that's
Okay,
all
hold
I've
on
heard
a
for the
sec,
last
hold
couple
on a
days.
sec. Mike?
Yeah, I apologize for that.
Yeah, I
I have a tendency to be disrespectful sometimes.
no, I just, because then everyone else can do the same, so I wanna avoid that completely, so you're next.
Sorry.
On medical, sorry,
Yeah.
she's next on medical.
I have one more. The second
Yeah,
one-
I'll come back to you, yeah,
Okay, but
okay?
mine relates to what he has just said about sharing the private medical information with.
No, there's no private medical information shared, it is that you have an appointment, not what it's for. Full stop.
If I could ask my question, I
Yeah.
think it kind of covers that.
Yeah.
In terms of private medical information, you know, if I'm going to see my doctor or chiropractor, whatever, if I'm going to see a specialist or if I'm going for tests, that is private medical information. So what I'd actually like to know is what kind of confidentiality agreements are the people asking for this information? What have they signed? How is that information being stored? Who has access to it? That's my question.
Well,
How are
that'll
you
be a
dealing
question
with that
for-
private
that'll
medical
be a
information,
question
because
for-
it
yeah.
is.
So first of all, again, the notion of whether or not you have an appointment is not protected medical private information. The WPM is the one that'll be assessing whether or not you have a legitimate reason to cross. And I have no idea what their record keeping will be. I suspect it will simply be a database of these people are approved to cross for medical reasons at a certain time, period.
Okay, we have two people back there, first timers, go ahead, please, person right at the back.
I have a question regarding the point, any person in responding to a medical or physical health need.
Okay, we're not there yet, we're gonna come there.
Okay.
Okay, next, back there.
I just wanted to clarify your point of WPM being the one for assessing. According to the preliminary schedule that I put out, it says that WPM's employer manager will only be on site from 10 to 4. All of the other hours, it's actually a union rep is there. So in that sense, it is.
So union rep will be on site, first thing in the morning before the 6:30 sailings, and then again in the afternoon after the scheduled sailings. That's what was negotiated at the board today. So yeah, our members will be there to determine who has been approved, and they will have some discretion on that. But essentially, at the end of the day, it's Western Pacific Marine who gives the approval. So if there's a question about it, it'll go to Western Pacific Marine and they'll make a decision on it. And we're obligated to follow the directions of Western Pacific Marine.
Okay, here for the first time, go ahead.
Related to medical appointments and that sort of stuff. One thing this order doesn't include is provisions for picking up prescriptions for existing conditions. Has that been clarified, or you just you can't cross to that?
It hasn't been clarified, but there are the regular sailing times for people to go across the new zone.
Okay, so just hang on, so Mike, what happens in Balfour for prescription purposes? Has that been addressed?
At Balfour, the only people allowed to cross for prescriptions are people who cannot get a prescription filled on the east shore.
But we can't get them
Could
filled
get
in
it.
Glade.
Okay, order please, I'll get to you, but we have first timers. Okay, go ahead,
With regards
to medical.
Yep.
Yep.
Verifying medical.
Okay, order please. It's hard to hear people. Thank you. Go
You
ahead.
said that maybe going across you weren't able to provide it, but coming back you could. So what you're asking for then is a doctor's note or something along those lines?
Just
that they
confirmation that you have an
usually
appointment.
charge for. So if
Well-
the doctor charges to write that note, are you going to be reimbursing the citizens of Glade who are required to
You
get?
don't need a doctor's note. You could get the staff note, receptionist note, anybody, as long as you have an appointment.
Yeah, we have that done.
By the way,
We have that done.
just so you know, it does cost money.
Okay.
I would be surprised if the doctor's office charged money to simply give you a note to say you were here for an appointment.
They do.
Okay, first time and then back to you.
No, she asked my question.
Oh, she asked your question. Okay, so we have you, yes, please.
I spent a lot of time on the computer today, and it's my understanding of the laws of the country, privacy laws are being violated, is my interpretation. I'm not a lawyer. However, if a policeman stops me, I'm not obligated to provide information unless I'm charged. Now, telling WPM I'm going to a doctor Monday, Wednesday, Friday, my understanding, I do not have to provide that information.
Well, then you won't get on the boat. You're right, you don't have to do that, but you just won't be allowed to
Well,
sail.
how did they determine that? Isn't that a violation of privacy law?
No, whether or not you have an appointment is not a privately protected right. It's not. And just like you go to the liquor store and they ask you for your ID, you don't have to provide it. They just won't sell you booze, right?
Yep. So you're next, please.
Oh, can I just
Oh,
continue?
yes.
Now, the Charter of Rights and Freedom,
I thought you said you
Section
weren't a lawyer.
7 applies to life, liberty, and security of each person of this country. Our rights are being violated.
You're entitled to your opinion. Next.
Okay, we are not gonna be debating,
Listen, let me say something. I don't mean that to sound flippant, but this issue has been taken to the board. The issue was taken to the board, and the board ordered that it is appropriate for people to provide the basic information to show the legitimacy of their purpose of their crossing. Because otherwise, it's just basically,
okay, we have first time up top and over there. Go ahead, please.
If a person can't get hold of this, Western Pacific for a medical, clearance to go across, if I was to call my doctor and the receptionist or whoever I talk to, if they email me and I put it on my phone to the operator.
Perfect.
Are you going to have, say, a person walking the line to see if people are using the essential service, or do I have to get out of my vehicle or fudge to the front of the line get on the boat, show my, appointment notice, get back in my car, go on, how's this going to work?
So, so the purpose of having the monitors there during the hours that they're designated to be there is for exactly that purpose, is to determine who in the line, is qualified to get essential crossings and then to be brought forward. Obviously, at this point, we have no idea what it's actually gonna look like on a daily basis, at 1 o'clock in the afternoon or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We expect it to be very busy, obviously, in the mornings, but we will, like the employer and the union are both expected to have monitors there to help with exactly what you're talking about.
Now,
Okay, is this, okay, one supplemental, go ahead.
And just to answer that other point, yes, if you have an email confirmation from your doctor, that's perfect.
Yep.
Now, that's fine, now what happens if I show up after the designated sailing hours?
To come home.
Like between 8:30 and 4 o'clock, or after 5:30 on my return?
You're essential.
You're essential and you get on-demand sailing.
Is
How
there
do we
time-
Okay,
notify?
guys, please. Okay, so on medical,
On the medical,
Okay.
what happens if you have, because we can only fit 10 cars if we're left with usually 8, if there's trucks. If there is 20 people crossing for medical appointments, how are you going to decide who gets to go and who's waiting?
No, they allow both, they have to totally sail. Like,
No, but they don't
first
fit on the
come
ferries.
back and they have to, because they're essential service, they have to.
Doesn't count as a trip.
So this would be a little bit complicated, and this was just discussed today at the board.
Priority, right?
So the employer, during the times of those those scheduled crossings that are happening in the morning, they could at any time designate one of those sailings to be just for essential. And so, for example, if it was a school bus, they could say, okay, just the school bus goes across, and that doesn't count as one of the 8 crossings. But that's gonna, we don't know how they're gonna manage that, but that's a provision that's in place. But if it's designated as an essential crossing, it'll only be for people that are approved as essential. It won't be just everybody gets on and it's called an essential crossing.
okay, new question, medical?
Yeah, it's about medical and just the logistics of it. First, I do wanna say I really appreciate you being here, and I'm really disappointed in Western Pacific Marine for not being here to answer questions. Has there been any discussions today at the labor board or anywhere else about traffic control? Because I think one of the advantages in Balfour is that there's, you can have a different lane for essential, there's a lot of things you can do, and here it just seems a lot more complex.
We agree, and I can tell you that today I was arguing at the board for that exact thing. There should be traffic control. WPM should have a shuttle to get people, if people decide to park their cars on the far side somewhere, a shuttle to accommodate that. We've said there should be washroom facilities provided for people who might be stuck in line for a long period of time. Western Pacific Marine, I hope nobody criticizes me for speaking for them, but their response was, we don't think it's gonna be that bad. We don't think it's gonna be that busy. We've looked at the trip sheets and there's only a couple cars a day, per sailing going across. So we were arguing for more policing and more, management and facilitation of essential people to get through the lineup. They said, we don't think that's necessary. They didn't wanna provide the staffing and the resources to do that. So that's how we ended up with a compromise where we will be doing some of that, even though it's the employer's role. They are doing a brief period in the afternoon.
And one of the things that we're thinking about, for example, the Terry's Community Hall has a lot of parking. So if there was a shuttle, people could possibly park safely at the Terry's Community Hall. Again, this is just one idea that came up today. There are other venues that are further away, like Shrakers Hall doesn't have a lot of parking, the ground's really soft too when it's muddy there. But the thing is that we have to think out of the box, try and assist the community, and there's a bunch of us that are working on that part. How can we help, right, get through this? And so here, if the community said to Western Pacific, we need a shuttle, that's legitimate, and that could be taken to the board. And
Well, it should be something you should just be able to negotiate with Western
exactly,
Pacific Marine.
they should provide it, that's it. Traffic control makes sense. Okay, so we're now on medical only. Peter, another medical question? Okay.
One thing, we have an appointment, myself and Louise, we phoned the clinic, and we said that, we are thinking that the ferry is gonna be on strike. Could you help us and give us our appointments? Could you email them? We had no problem, we got an email, no cost. They were actually really sympathetic with us and saying, we're sorry to hear that, we'll accommodate you as much as we can. So that, you can get that without any cost. Another thing, with the, you parking your, cars and vehicles there, we had a week strike here one time, and people were parking, there was more vandalism, gas was stolen, windows were broken. Now it's even worse when we have people coming in here and stealing right in front of your house in the daylight time. Could you imagine what's going to be happening at those cars being parked and everybody knowing there's a strike and people are parking there?
But Peter, at the Brandon Cultural Center, when there's a shutdown of the pulp mill, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of vehicles there. Shuttles are in place, and the key thing is they can be patrolled as well. So this is done all the time. So that's just the way, like, we're just looking at solutions. Okay, now we've done a lot of time on medical. So are these new questions on medical? Neil, go.
Well, with the medical, would it be advantageous if people scheduled their medical appointments for like a time when the 16 regular sailings are there? Is there gonna be somebody there to see you at 10, 11, 12 o'clock when you show up to show the paperwork to the cross?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Excellent suggestion.
That's good. New questions on medical? Okay, let her.
It pertains to medical in regards to
yeah,
caregivers.
yes.
Our parents of children caregivers are owners of animals that need to be cared for and attended to, considered caregivers. So it falls along the lines of medically, they will not survive without the caregiver there to attend.
It isn't, I don't think it's specifically just caregivers, it's medical professionals, it's basically healthcare providers.
It's health
So that's it.
providers.
So caregivers are not part of that, so if a young child doesn't have its parent.
We are actually going to get to a section that is a catch, that gives the, there's kind of language on other things, so we'll get to that. New questions on medical, go please, I haven't seen your hand yet.
Is it just immediate medical, or are we talking physiotherapy, chiropractic, massage, etc.?
It's medical appointments, so yeah, those would be fine as well, as long as they can be documented.
Okay, new questions on medical?
And what about for some of our elders who have home support coming in at different times during the day? Are those workers gonna be considered essential?
I believe so, yeah, they would be considered healthcare
Yeah,
providers.
that comes up here as well. Okay, new questions on medical?
just
Yes,
one-
first time speaker.
Where does animal husbandry and vet appointments fall into the scheme of things?
So, that's an issue that's in dispute. It talks about, I think it says healthcare providers. The labor code only applies to, humans, citizens of BC. And I know there's lots of people who would say that their pets are citizens of BC, but technically speaking, they don't fall under the ordinance.
But there is language for an emergency provision. So if your pet is in distress and you got a vet coming, I think that would probably fit the alternative clause. New medical, please.
I understand you guys are the ones that are forcing this in, right?
That's a matter of opinion, but we are the ones that are initiating the strike.
So, do you not have a decision on say who's gonna go across that ferry? If it's for a medical reason or anything like that?
The employer is,
Can you not override?
the order
says employer.
specifies that the employer confirms and
Okay.
directs the staff.
I gotta go. I'm being called home. But I would say that 90% of the people in this room is behind you, the union, the ferry drivers, and everything else. We understand what happened out in Belfort, and we understand there's an alternative route. We don't have a route out of here. My question is why did the union not ask us at the very beginning of all this for support, so that we could support you? That's what we're peed off at. You didn't even think about
I
that.
actually did, I did put it on Facebook there to say start writing letters, we were on
Right.
the site.
Okay, guys, order.
4 people did.
I did.
4
I
people
did.
And then when it came out later on there, that one person said, hey, how come Glade's not making more of a stink about this?
Because we didn't actually think it was gonna follow through.
Okay, hey guys, it's not a debate.
But
It's
I
not,
did write down.
please, it's,
Thank you.
okay,
On my night,
thank you, okay?
But there would be
A new
hardship
question on
on that.
medical?
not on medical.
Okay, then we're not doing anything. We're gonna move on to students now. Students, up to and including grade 12 students crossing to attend classes at public or private school. Any questions on students? Go.
Does this include post-secondary students?
No, this is up to and including grade 12,
Why does it not include post-secondary?
because that's what the labor board rules.
So my
Okay,
understanding.
just wait. Okay, your hand is up, only one up, go.
So my understanding, this includes students, so there are roughly, Roxanne, 5 families, I think in Glade. No, 5 families that go to Brent Kennedy. There's no bus that comes over to Brent Kennedy. I think Roxanne asked this question. We drive our children to school, we come back home, we drive back over, and we come back home. So you're saying we can do that?
Yes.
We're not going to be, 'cause
That
I
is
work
number,
night
that's
shift.
not, that's the next point
That's the
there.
next point.
Okay, go.
That is part of that, but just in case you could answer it. So, I pick up a child, and, well, she's not my own kid, but I'm her caretaker at the time, because she's essential and not at home. But, my big question is, I don't wanna take up those sailors from people who use them and I can get over the child, so I'm gonna wait, till 5:36
Okay.
to come back over with that child. Is that
Yes.
going to be allowed?
Yes.
Even though it's way past
So
school
3
time?
says,
Okay.
parents or guardians of students crossing for the purpose of dropping off or picking up students attending classes, excluding non-classroom or extracurricular school activities. So can you explain that one?
Yeah, so, inevitably, we're gonna have students who say, hey, I play volleyball and I have a game tonight. They don't count under the order, unfortunately. But what you just described does. Now, listen, I'll say this. We've had abuse of this at Balfour, where people come, feel like, hey, as long as we got a kid in the car, we can
Just
go
hang- just
anywhere
hang
we
on.
want, anytime we want.
Just hold on a second. Okay, guys, please.
So there does need to be some connection to you going to and from school. I think the explanation you just gave is a reasonable one, to say, we're coming back at 5:30 for this reason, coming back from school. Fair enough.
Okay, I see 4 hands, so back there, please, and you, nope,
Back there.
You said parents and guardians,
the order says parents or guardians.
So sometimes we carpool, sometimes I'm home with a sick kid and I call my neighbor, hey, can you take my kids to school? How is that gonna work?
That would be considered a guardian.
Okay.
Okay, next.
My son is in grade 12. He has to obtain so many volunteer hours to graduate. That has to be done outside of school time. Will that be accommodated, him getting his volunteer hours
That's a good
so
one.
he can graduate?
Yeah. It's a credit requirement, you could make the
It's
case.
not extracurricular, he has to have it.
Yeah,
right?
listen, I think if you could provide some kind of confirmation of that.
All students in BC have to.
Well, you know what, your school will provide a letter to say that that's true, but if you show up with your kid at, or your child is coming back at 10 o'clock at night saying, yep, I'm a high school student coming back, there needs to be some evidence to support why that's happening, okay? And I don't think that that's overly onerous, the schools will absolutely do that.
No, but
We've
it's
had
like
no,
9 o'clock because he had to go do volunteer hours.
Fair enough.
Okay,
Fair enough.
next, on students and,
So, I am a grandparent, I am a backup for my grandchildren. One of my grandchildren attends daycare and it's not in the age group of 5 to grade 12, so kindergarten to grade 12. But she may be at daycare, there may be times where I need to pick her up. Is that gonna be accommodated?
what was the order say?
it says, students up to and including grade 12 students that crossing to attend classes, parents or guardians of students crossing for the purpose of dropping off or picking up students attending classes.
I think that would qualify.
Yeah, there you heard it, okay, write it down, you said yes.
Take yes for an answer.
Okay, you're next.
So my
Okay, order,
understanding was
please.
that if the student was coming back at 10 o'clock, would that then, like I heard you before, go to an on-demand thing as long as you have a.
Yes.
a-
So
involved in a business that makes lunches for the students in school district 20 and school district 8. So I leave at 8 o'clock in the morning.
This is perfect here because the next one says personnel who are necessary for the operation of classes, excluding non-classroom or extracurricular, and administrative, custodial staff at public-private, so probably fit in there.
No,
Why?
specifically doesn't, because it says excluding non-curricular, so unfortunately.
Well,
that
this
wouldn't-
is, but this is food for schools.
It's not curricular.
Yeah, but
Okay.
this would be food for tribes in the schools.
So,
Okay.
so you wouldn't qualify for essential crossings, you'd have to try to, make the scheduled crossings if possible.
Okay, on students now, anyone new? A lot of stuff here. Peter, I got you, don't worry, I got you. Okay, Neil?
Hey, Mike, with the different people showing up regularly for different things, are
Okay,
you gonna have a
just wait a
list?
sec, it's
So
really
they
hard.
don't have to present everything and
Just
go
Neil,
through
just
it all?
stop for a sec.
Okay.
It's really hard to hear what, there's a chatter going on. Okay.
So are you gonna be able to make a list so that people can state their name, you can look at it, and it already shows who they are and what they're doing, so they don't have to go through a long explanation? Show the medical thing every time they go across at the same time? And on both sides of the ferry, so they can say, I'm so-and-so, it's a medical, and then you look under medical and the name is there. So they don't have to go through the whole
So
rigmarole.
I'll say again, that Western Pacific Marine is responsible for doing that.
Right.
And they've said to us today that that's their intention, is to develop a list, and they will provide that to us, and we will try to work off that list, as long as we don't think it's being maliciously used or abused, okay? So I believe that process will be in place, but it is the obligation and the responsibility of Western Pacific Marine, and they've said they will do that.
I'm just saying, the time it takes to prove your reason,
Yeah.
once your name is
What's,
there, you shouldn't have to
You should
prove
have
it
a
every single
spreadsheet,
time.
that's just a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Things that you
So,
think in this day
so I
and
think
age.
if it, my understanding is that if it's something regular, they're gonna try to do that, like certainly with, school teachers and students.
Right.
I can tell you the way it works at Balfour, at the Osprey, people just show us here's my letter from the doctor, here's my appointment confirmation. It takes 2 seconds, we wave them on, that's it, right? So,
Okay, we
same
have
thing
a-
with school teachers, they just, here's my letter, we've seen it before, yeah, we recognize you from yesterday, go ahead.
First time speaker on students? Yep.
So if you work a regular job and your kids go to school and they get back at like 3 o'clock and you miss the last ferry, are you gonna be allowed to cross?
Technically, no, if you're not crossing with students, and it's outside of the regular sailing.
So your 10-year-old kid or whatever will be home alone for the night?
That's what the orders are.
Would that all be considered an emergency? Child abandonment? That would be an emergency.
Okay.
I'm sorry, it would be.
I'm sorry.
So something, I think, duly noted to look into. On students, we're gonna go with you and then across.
I just wanna make sure I understand, so for students who might be doing volunteer hours or those required things for school, who turn up outside of the regular crossing times, who may have misplaced their letter or don't have one, allowing them to return home, you're going to let minors, not cross from home to their parents, to their shelters.
No, that's not the case. I mean, look, we're going to be asking some questions and we're gonna be asking for some explanations. But ultimately, the employer, in that circumstance, the employer would direct us to do it and we would do it. Okay? If we feel, here's the way it works, is the employer has the final say.
Okay,
They
please.
make the decisions, we honor the decisions. If we feel that they're being, if the process is being abused, which it has been by Western Pacific Marine at Balfour, then we have the right to challenge that at the labor board and put tighter restrictions on. But the bottom line is the employer has some discretion to declare some things emergencies, but they have to be able to justify that. It can't just be because you said so, or because, somebody's just claiming that for the sake of not being inconvenienced. But look, if you have legitimate situations and you're explaining that, Western Pacific Marine will grant you access, and we will grant you access. And if we think that it's being abused, we have a process for dealing with that.
But as you've attested, the kind of way people go about requesting to cross does sort of dictate if they're allowed to cross.
that's a fair statement. You have the ability to explain whether you meet the essential service requirements or not. And if you explain it, and we can have reason to believe that your situation is legitimate, then there shouldn't be an issue. But I'll tell you, what we've dealt with elsewhere is people just making false statements, and clearly making false statements and laughing about it. Well, then we object to that, but we're not here to try to prevent your kids from getting home or to cause that type of grief for people. But there's an order, and both parties are required to follow it, and both parties will do it with good intentions, right? So like there will be people that will try to abuse it and make false claims, and if we think that's the case, we're going to challenge it. But obviously, if your kid's coming home and saying, "Look, this is what happened. I need to get home. This is an unusual circumstance," you're not going to have problems getting across.
Okay, we have two questions here. Are the on students, Peter? And then I'm coming to you, back to you. Yep. Go ahead.
Child, because I have a child at home and I need to get going, but we're talking about child. From my understanding, you did say to this gentleman over here, most people don't work from a typical 8 to 4 job, and their children come home and they can be left home alone for a short period of time. But if he misses the sale, are you telling me that that's perfectly okay for that 10-year-old to be at home by themselves all night long?
Of course.
Okay.
Are you guys even aware that any child under the age of 12 legally cannot be left at home?
Exactly.
Right.
Actually.
That is a fact.
But anyway, so.
Okay, thank you. So I think he said absolutely not. Next question. The question's answered. Next.
I want to know if this has been going on for a couple months already, this strike with Glade and Harriet Proctor. What is the likelihood that this is gonna be resolved ASAP? Do you think this is gonna work to put us all out this much? Like, is it gonna work?
I have no way of answering that, but it's our hope that it'll help us get this thing done very quickly.
Okay, I'm going to say something right now. I'm going to make a statement. What you've been doing is awesome. Every email that comes to me, I'm sending it to people. And the more emails, the more calls, putting pressure on both parties, not just one party, to resolve this thing is really important. So keep sending the emails. Don't stop. The whole point of this is to ramp up the pressure to resolve this dispute and get it done.
But
So
what's
keep.
difficult is that why is your negotiations more important than our livelihoods and our groceries? When you guys are already getting paid and they're already working and they just want some additions. I
I'm gonna let you
can't go
answer.
to work at all.
Okay. Look, I'll answer that, and I don't expect you to accept my answer or to support it. But I'm gonna tell you that in Canada, workers have the right to go on strike and withdraw their services. That's a right that was won because people died trying to fight for better rights in working places. So we have that legal right to do it. We didn't do it 5 years ago. We didn't do it this time. We've only used it when we have run out of every other avenue for getting a deal done with the employer. And we're no different than the postal service or the job workers or any other people who go on strike.
You don't have the right to hold people hostage.
Okay,
Andy,
thank you, hold on, we've got hands up. So I made a mistake, cause I opened it up, we're gonna go next to ambulance, so any ambulance can cross, anytime. RCMP vehicles, anytime. Any emergency dispatch, anytime.
Would we win support if we kept the cops out? What's that, sorry?
Any emergency dispatch.
Yeah.
Okay, any health professional, there are questions about health professionals, any health professional,
Yes.
okay? These people could come and go as needed.
But we need
Just wait.
documentation, right? Health professionals, you said that we need to call.
He said it about 8 times already, right? You gotta have your whatever you are. Any person in or responding to a mental or physical health emergency. Could you please explain that one?
So if you're having a heart attack, if you're lacerated and bleeding and having to get to the ER, and you're trying to get across, you're gonna get across.
Okay, so that's in a private vehicle, whatever, okay?
Yep.
And then we go to any other emergency purpose. Can you please explain what the LRB meant by that one?
So it's a safe valve, it's a safety valve, to deal with some of the situations you talked about, where there's an unusual circumstance, and everybody's agreeing that, hey, this isn't covered by the order, but we're very concerned about safety and somebody being put in, their health or safety being put in jeopardy. The employer has the right to say, we think that's an emergency, and we're gonna grant access to go across.
Okay, so that's kind of the catch-all clause.
Again, it's something that we police to make sure it isn't abused, and it has been at Balfour. They've made false claims of emergency crossings, and we did the crossing because we were required to, and then we deal with it at the labor board afterwards, and they get fined for it, so.
Snow removal or snow preparation vehicle, snow plows, salt trucks, no issue.
No issue.
12, any vendor delivery, this is only applies to Proctor, but fuel trucks, anything like that, propane trucks for propane?
Amazon courier.
Oh, okay, that, you're right, forgot about Amazon.
And skip the dishes? Oh, yeah, they're good. Yeah.
Okay, so, just hold on a sec. Questions and just the items we just covered? And then general questions after that. So anything on what we just covered? Yes?
It's what's missing from there, and that's the
Well-
access to food. Like
That's why you have the 16 crossings a day.
But if,
What if those aren't accessible?
What if you're at work and can't get there till after?
because Proctor, they have a store, Balfour can go to Creston, or sorry, people in the East Fork can go to Creston. Glade has nothing, we don't even have a convenience store, we don't have a, so where are we gonna get our food if we can't make it across?
So those issues were raised at the labor board, and the labor board ruled that those 16 crossings are what you're entitled to for those purposes.
Okay, first time speaker, go ahead.
So, we've been talking a lot about
Just wait a second. Just wait for order, please. We'll just wait. Okay, go ahead.
We've been talking a lot about the labor board and how the company and the union were at the labor board. Was there an opportunity for somebody from Glade community to be there?
Yes?
And who was there for this community to?
The employer put out a request for anybody that wanted to participate in their presentation.
When
And there
did
was
they do
5 or
that?
6 people that were part of it.
When?
2 weeks ago.
Nobody heard about this request.
Because this request would have really helped us to get there to have our concerns, because right now it sounds like you guys are still negotiating. And nobody from Glade community is a part of that negotiation
Right.
with all their concerns. So if you're not bringing them forward, or the company is not bringing them forward, they're not, the laborer's not hearing them right now.
Yeah, the company and labor board
Okay,
members live in this
he's
community.
got the floor.
So listen, I'll try to make this clear for you. The labor board hearing is strictly between the union and the employer. We're there saying, we have a right to go on strike, we'd like to go on strike. The employer is saying, yeah, but there's some concerns about people's health and safety. They bring all those concerns forward. The labor board listens and they rule on what they feel is required by the labor code, okay? And that's what happened. The company did put out an expression of interest. I don't know exactly how they did it. We're not part of that, but I know that they brought a number of witnesses from the community that raised a number of the concerns that you guys are talking about here today, and those all contributed to the order that was eventually written and handed to us.
Is there a chance we can get those concerns that were presented to labor boards? Because I feel like they're missing a lot.
Or the affidavits, public draw.
I think if you read the issue that, the decision that came out with the order, the vice chair goes into detail explaining how he reached his decision, and he talks about the things that were raised.
We'll send out a link to the full order. It's 15 pages, it's not long, but I don't think the affidavits are public.
They're not affidavits, they were witness testimony, and it's a public hearing, so that's.
Some of them, some people said they did affidavits for the employer.
Oh, perhaps they did, yeah.
They did,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
Okay, all right, so we're gonna do one more thing, and then we're gonna take open questions. Here we go. So we're gonna do that the Glade Ferry may also cross for legitimate emergencies not already identified above as determined by the employer. And the union's just gonna say, okay, employer determined this. If it's something that someone's trying to pull a fast one, the union obviously is gonna say, okay. But they're gonna go to the labor board. But the employer is the one that has been ordered to set the schedule, to set the, who can go across in non-regular times. The employer does all of this. So that number, and the employer being available is so essential, I use that intentionally, for this community. I mean, there's gotta be somebody here. They gotta have somebody here.
I think so. One of the
They
problems-
can set up shop right here for crying out loud.
One of the problems that we have consistently with Western Pacific Marine is that they are run out of Vancouver and Nanaimo. All of the senior management that we're negotiating against are out of the community, and they won't come here to meet with us. They're not even familiar with the
They
operation.
didn't respond to any of my calls.
So it's a very difficult group to deal with in terms of.
Pardon? Well, that's the problem, is that I wanna see, I shouldn't say I think we all would like to see a Western Pacific representative standing here, sitting here, answering questions. But I guess they don't have to do it. Okay, so now we're gonna open it.
Can I just make one last comment?
Yeah.
But I'll be happy to stay as long as you want to answer your questions, but I do wanna just make one final comment on behalf of the union and the workers here. We know that this is extremely emotional, and there's gonna be high emotions throughout this time. We hope it ends quickly, but I wanna just say this. We've heard about threats against the workers on the ferry. I wanna discourage that. We're gonna do the best we can to accommodate all of the concerns that you've raised here tonight. But you need to stay respectful of the folks on the vessel and the people doing the monitoring. I'm gonna say this not as a threat, but I just want you to be aware that if there are threats and the crews are feeling unsafe, they'll be directed to stop sailing and to take themselves to safety. And that's just gonna mean interruption of service to folks. That's happened on the Balfour a couple times, on the Osprey, I should say, where people got aggressive, tried forcing their way on the vessel, tried, driving over our members. We simply stopped the operation until it was safe again. So I only say that because there will be emotions, and I don't want it to cause even more disruptions for you folks. So thank you.
Okay, so now it's open question. So we have first timers, we're gonna start there.
Thank you. Two parts. I'm getting it out really quick so that we won't get caught in one. And one is, where do we stand with the negotiations? And the other is, how long does the employer have their contract with the province? How much of that is left?
Yeah, good question.
Good.
So I'll answer the second part first. So the employer is in the middle, is at the early stages of a 5-year term right now. They had, I'll clarify, it's a 10-year contract that started in 2018. And at the 5-year mark, which was last fall, there was a renewal. So they had a chance to negotiate more money and better payment for themselves a year ago. So there's 4 more years. Okay. So that's okay. So there was that question, and then sorry, what was the first part?
Where do we stand in the
Oh, yeah,
negotiations?
okay.
I'm just going to throw
Okay.
a little bit into
Yeah.
that. And how long does this particular negotiation? How long will this contract last for in relation to that one?
That's a good question too. I would say we're down to 4 or 5 main items that we're apart on, and we're hoping that this bit of pressure from this will be enough to try to get us to an agreement. So we're using a mediator from the labor board to try to help work through those issues, and we are open to negotiations and mediation at any time with the employer. So we're very committed to trying to get this thing done quickly. But like I said at the beginning, we need this deal to be comparable to what was negotiated through the rest of the province.
And what was the term of those other deals?
3 years, and this is a really important point to understand. I mean, from our perspective, anyways. Traditionally and previously to this, the employer goes and negotiates a contract with the Ministry of Transportation. They work out a deal, and then we come afterwards to negotiate our contract, and we're consistently told, well, sorry, there's no money because we already negotiated our deal with the ministry. So this time around, we're insisting on a 3-year contract, and it's so that we can go and negotiate with WPM before they have to negotiate with the ministry, and then they can go to the ministry and say, well, this is what it's gonna cost to run the ferry, and hopefully that helps us avoid this problem ever again, right? That's our strategy.
Okay, so just go and, oh,
Is the post office a vendor making normal scheduled deliveries?
I don't think so, but that's a good question. That hasn't been considered. So vendors are usually people that are selling stuff, and that's what was contemplated from the board hearings, was the need to get deliveries to basically to the Harrop General Store, right? Or
Yeah.
Proctor.
that's the way the order reads, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think that they would be considered that. But, so I mean, listen, I think that there's a way for you to have Canada Post hold your mail and then get it from town, if that's helpful to you, I don't know. That's something I hadn't considered, but,
Okay, so post office. Okay, we're gonna keep going this way and all the way around. You're next.
So when will we finally know the day of the strike and the actual hours that the ferry will sail? Because it didn't sound like I haven't seen you writing the hours you stated to us today, and I'd really like to see that in writing.
sure. Well, I'm gonna give you a website address, which is the union's information site, and this information will be available on there tomorrow. The address is ferries.bcgeu.ca. And we
Okay,
will do our.
just
Yep.
repeat that again
Sure.
for everybody.
Ferries, FERRIES, .bcgeu.ca. And we'll do our best to have updated information on there, as quickly as possible. Now, to answer your question about when the strike will start, we anticipate, January 3rd or 4th. It depends on some logistics, that we have to get worked out. And that could be postponed if we actually get into negotiations with the employer. If there's some progress in our negotiations, we would consider pausing that. But at this time.
Are you at the table now?
No, but we think that this action is going to get us back to the table, quickly, and that's what we're counting on.
Okay, so we're gonna move around now. We've got, yeah, right there, please.
One thing that I really don't understand, and there's a lot of people that think this, that actually, you guys are holding us captive, and we are feeling like we are hostages. And important things to us, we're like, okay, another thing is, if we're gonna go for groceries, do we have to leave at 8 o'clock in the morning and come home at 4? If you get a car. If you get a car. And another thing is, us going on the journey, if we're gonna go on a trip, going on a trip, or even we're gone overnight, coming home late at night, means, yeah, we have to be home, we have a curfew. We are adults, we are citizens, and we are union people. My husband has always been in the union, we have always supported a union, and not once do I know any union people have held people hostage, not being able to go on with their own lives. And one important thing here, if we are kept captive here, we would like to have our BNI delivery for Amazon, please.
Hey, special notation. And what's your address? Sorry, I just had to throw a little bit of humor in there, but, yeah, this is really, for me, like, my wife says, where are you going? I says, going to a meeting in Glade. What's it about? Never mind. Okay, so we're moving this way now. Was there, Rob, you had your hand up before. Do you have a comment?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, where's our MLA?
I spoke with Steve Morissette today. He called me. Mike Morissette. Here's Steve. It's Steve.
No, it's
not
Steve.
Mike.
It is Steve.
Okay, there is a Mike Morissette. There's a whole bunch of Morissettes actually. But I spoke with him today. He called me about an hour and a half before the meeting. He is seeking. Government's closed right now, pretty much, right? So the issue is that he's trying to get a hold of, and I think he won't be upset at me for saying this, he's trying to get a hold of the manager of Marine Services in the Ministry of Transportation and Highways. Good luck, right? So, because he's a brand new guy in this position, trying to get some advice on what he's supposed to do, and he actually said to me, he says, I'm seriously thinking about coming to the meeting. I said, you better come here with answers. if you're gonna be our MLA and you're coming here and you don't know anything, okay, you're gonna get chewed up and spit out. And I know him that well to say that to him. I'm reporting to him right after this meeting. We've got some ideas about what to do, who to bring here, if we need to. So I'm not gonna say anything more than that, but we're waiting for that. Brittany Anderson's out of country. When I text Brittany on her personal number, and I have, same thing with, I have their personal cell numbers. When I text her, she responds almost immediately. She's out of country somewhere, she's not responding. And it's, people in Harrop Proctor are used to that kind of response from her. But Brittany's the rural development secretariat person. Morissette is the parliamentary secretary for rural development. They are the people that should be very much a part of this. And I'm trying to bring them in. I just spoke to Cheryl Graham just before I came here. She's the director for Area E. She's in Australia, and she's calling nonstop.
We'll make sure
To
that they
help.
schedule their appointment to get across the ferry.
That's a real good point.
And they're here all day.
Touche. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna come back. We're going this way. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we talked about not being able to get a hold of Western Power Marine.
Yeah, is there a number?
This phone call, but besides phoning them, is there anybody 24/7 at our ferry landing that can okay me getting across with this little appointment or text message that I have?
So Western Pacific Marine today advised the Labor Board that they will have a number broadcasted that's gonna be 24/7 for that purpose. I don't believe it's in place yet, but they're committed to having it in place and advertised probably on the Western Pacific Marine website.
Have you added to your?
So when I go
Yes,
down, when
yes,
I go
yes.
down and tell Daryl I can't get through, if I will actually walk on the ferry, if I'm not arrested.
Yeah.
But anyway, I say, hey, I've been trying to call these guys, I got this going on, is he gonna be able to make that decision?
Yes, yes, he will. Yeah.
Okay, so we're moving. Nobody else on this side. I'm coming back. So right there.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, you said that you were talking to Steve Morissette. My question is, it seems really obvious to me that the service of ferry is an essential service. And you yourself said that the members, your members who work on there are essential service workers, which implies that the ferry is an essential service. If this hasn't happened before, because this is the only way on our Glade, what has changed? And my suggestion, Mr. Chair, would be when you talk to him to suggest that it is unchanged and this is determined to be an essential service, and all of this goes away. And it's obvious that it is.
So the complication.
That's not true.
Yeah, it's first of all, there are nuances to this thing that are really complex. One of them is that this is a third-party dispute. This is not a Crown Corporation that we're dealing with. Western Marine Pacific is a private company. And what's happening is it's a third-party dispute, and under the labor code, there are certain things that a labor minister can do. We looked at it very carefully. We've been studying all of this very carefully to see what could happen if this starts going on any longer. And that's the piece we're working on right now with everybody. I don't want to say anything else but what's complicating this is it's a third-party dispute that's not helpful. If it was a Crown Corporation, it'd be a different ballgame. So there's a lot of nuances here that we're still working on. Remember, this happened Friday. Weekend, I went skiing for the first time in 30 years with my 8-year-old granddaughter on Sunday. I am in horrible shape right now. Muscle, like right now I'm just seized right up. But I promised her I'd take her skiing, and I did. I'm granted. So I survived. But the bottom line is that there's so much happening right now behind the scenes that we're trying to figure stuff out to understand this situation, because it's brand new to all of us. So there's a lot of work going on. Okay, next.
It's really just a statement that I'd like to
Yep.
make. I really appreciate how you said to us earlier that, keep sending your emails.
Yes.
This is what we're looking for. Like,
Yes.
please, this is what makes the change. I just want you to know, we didn't ask for this.
No.
And that's really
appreciated, but we didn't ask for this. We didn't want this, and we certainly didn't want it during the Christmas holidays when everywhere is closed and you can't get in touch with anyone. And I probably think I speak for everyone in saying I don't appreciate being used as a pawn, being held hostage, and there is only one way on and off Glade, and that is that ferry, and it is essential. I don't care, you can go, oh, there's different meanings for essential. Come on, stop playing games. That is essential. And I don't appreciate not being able to access my home on my terms when I pay taxes like everyone else, that someone in an office somewhere can make a decision about what's right for me and my life and my family and my safety. So I would just like that to be known. I appreciate that you value our emails and that maybe they'll make a difference. I don't like being used as a pawn.
Yeah, I'm not part of this job action.
And sorry, the other thing, I understand the Amazon jokes and all that, but please, that really is insulting. It does a disservice to us.
I didn't make that, I didn't make the Amazon comment.
Or the lighthearted comments about things, it's not a joke.
I'm trying to get through this meeting, and I've told you that I am actually hurt my back really bad, that I didn't tell my wife yet. And I'm really hurting right now, so I just needed one little comment, and just to lighten the mood a little bit, and I apologize if that was insulting, it wasn't intended that way. Okay, back there.
I have a question regarding, point 9, any person in or responding to a mental or physical health emergency. It doesn't state here that you have to be a health professional for this. I have a question about if I am listed as an emergency contact for a friend or family member who doesn't live on Glade. Obviously, because I'm not a healthcare professional in any capacity, I'm not going to have anything showing that I am going to be medically treating them. However, if I am listed as an emergency contact for someone, they need me to be there with them at the hospital or if there's any sort of emergency. Also, it says a mental health emergency, which I believe is up for interpretation. If someone is having a mental health crisis and they need a friend and they call me, I feel like it would fall under this. I understand that this would be more a question for WPM, but they're not here, so I'm wondering if you had any information in how this could be dealt with Balfour and everything, because obviously I'm not gonna have a letter, it's gonna be a text message.
So my understanding, the interpretation of that is somebody who's going through a mental or physical emergency. So there needs to be an opportunity for the staff, or whether it's the manager or our folks, to say, yeah, this person's in crisis, obviously, let's get them across. I don't think that language is intended to cover your ability to go and deal with anything else outside of the area that's.
It does state any person in or responding to.
Yeah, but I think the interpretation of responding to is, maybe it's your friend who's driving you to Trail Hospital or something like that because of something that's going on. So it's not, I don't think it's not, like, the order is there to protect the residents of Glade. It's not to protect the rest of the world, because you're involved, right?
Okay.
May I just clarify on
Yep.
this?
Yep.
So, if an emergency contact, or if I am on Glade and I am having a mental health emergency and I need my friend, they are responding to me and I am like, that was not, would you say, in your experience dealing with Balfour and everything
I
like
would
this,
say,
that would not
if you're talking
fall?
about a friend needing to come here to assist you to deal with a medical emergency, I think that probably is covered. Yeah.
Okay, next.
Question, you talked about how you're open to negotiation and mediation and things like that. Are you open to binding arbitration to get this done?
Not at this time, no. No. There is no provision for binding arbitration, so it's voluntary mediation, and we're determined to try to get this deal done properly. So
But you are having case management meetings.
case management was to deal with the implementation of the essential service order.
So the LRB is very much involved. Okay, I'm just moving around. Yes, please, right there, first time.
I got a business here in Glade, let's say a full fabrication shop, and I got employees coming over every day from outside. And that means I gotta shut the business down now.
Unless they can get across during the scheduled sailings, that's right.
Okay, next.
Is there any talk about, that said you're not even at the table right now, for us families who don't have health workers crossing and you guys aren't
sailing at the times where they're required to go to work. How long is this gonna go on? Like, is there a,
Listen, I answered that question earlier. This thing could be over in 2 days, or it could be 2 weeks.
that's best case scenario, I'm talking about the worst case.
Well, I can't answer that, obviously, right? I mean, we're hoping that this is dealt with quickly. We're hoping we don't have to take any action here, and the employer comes back to the bargaining table, and we get a deal done in a week, and then there won't be a need for any of this. But at the current time, we can't answer how long this could go on for. I'm sorry about that.
Okay, so I've got two people, there with the great, yeah.
I'm just curious as to, usually we deal with union employer issues, it's damage to the employer. In this case, I'm curious as to how much damage is directed to the employer versus a third party.
We wouldn't be doing this if we didn't know that there was gonna be financial hardship for the employer. That's the only reason we're doing it.
For incentive to bring
Yes.
to the table?
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Can you just say one more?
Okay, let's keep order, okay? Okay, and you had, the person in front of you had their hand up with the camera? Oh, you did, you're clear? Okay, keep moving this way. Peter, you're next.
My question is there gonna be, somebody on each side of the landing to say, yes, you can go across? Or how do we notify the ferry, or?
So again, Western Pacific Marine is supposed to be developing some kind of a process for people to make those type of declarations ahead of time. But what will be happening throughout the days is that there will be somebody on the vessel going back and forth, and they will be coming up on the shore to talk to people to find out it. So if you're there and you're saying, look, I meet the criteria, I need to get across, there will be somebody there to make that assessment. But it will be much smoother for you if you're able to get pre-approved by Western Pacific Marine ahead of time when possible.
At some point, you can, because
Yep.
if you're going for an eye surgery,
Yep.
and they say they only phone you on a Tuesday to come in on a Friday, and if you say, give me an email so I can present it to the operator worker, is that a problem?
No, that's fine.
And coming back is not a problem.
No problem.
Okay,
That's all.
first time speaker, right there.
This goes out to all the ferry drivers and all of you. We all are feeling the inflation that the government and the banks have caused us. But I'm self-employed. I don't have a union to protect me or nothing. And all you guys are fucking cutting off my life source and dependence, my dependence on my family.
Okay,
Yo,
respect.
just listen to this for a
But
second.
just
There is a back way out of here. And this is our tax freaking money that pays for this freaking incompetent ferry. We should have the right to have a back route out of this fucking place.
Yes,
we should.
This is a major security route, this freaking ferry. I knew it when I bought this place, I fucking regret
Okay,
it.
please be respectful,
We
okay?
tried
Okay,
that,
next.
we tried that.
Bullshit. They build roads all over this freaking place, man.
We
There's no
tried it 20
reason why
years
we
ago.
could have roads
This
here.
is, this is something that the emergency services has been
This
looking
is a
at,
freaking emergency.
has been looking at that roadway for a long time. And the key thing is that building that road properly, to use it properly, is a huge cost. Who's gonna do that? Highways has to allocate the
Well, we
money.
pay taxes.
Same
This is a security
entity.
freaking issue.
So guess what? It's still being discussed. Next.
So in regards to livestock
Yep.
and animals again, people that are caregivers for their livestock and their animals, that would be considered emergency, because if you're not there to attend, they're life dependent on you.
We don't give a shit about that.
Okay, guys.
So then what does the SPCA have to say about that? That's what I would like to know. Is what does the SPCA have?
We don't, the SPCA isn't involved at all. The
Well,
essential
they're
service
gonna
order,
be now.
the essential service order is to protect the citizens of British Columbia.
Yeah, and then
Okay.
the SPCA. will
There
have
is
to
a
say-
situation I'm aware of in Harrah Proctor that they're dealing with right now with 1,000 chickens that need feed delivered in bulk.
Yeah.
So they're dealing with that right now, so don't know how it's gonna be dealt with.
So I just
Yeah.
finished, so I am also a union worker. I have gone to bat for this community and put endless hours of my volunteer time into this community, because this is why I fought in this community, because how amazing and tight it is and supportive of each other this is. Shame on you as a union for people that live here and work on that ferry, that they have to face their neighbors now daily. So it's not even the stress
you're destroying this community, and it is for what? What, I wanna know, cause on the website it says that you guys have gotten the raise, on the WPM website, it says you got the raise, you got the extended benefits. What is it that's not being met, that you guys are going to hold people hostage for? Because
Union terrorists, man.
that's what I would like to know. What is it that's not being met that you guys are going to bat for? Because on the
So we
WPM
don't
says-
we don't have agreement on the wages. There has not been agreement
So
on
why are
the
they
benefits.
posting that there is?
Because they're lying.
Okay.
Okay? Pretty simple as that, okay? So there's a number of issues around wages and benefits, that are still at play, and those are what we're trying to get resolved, so, but that's who we're dealing with.
Okay,
Somebody
next.
is more interested in what they put on their website.
Yeah, I'll come back to you. We're gonna go around again, okay?
This
So, your
ferry,
turn.
this ferry is a public highway. Okay, for us, it's a public highway. You're gonna make a statement? Go pick it in the main highway, block traffic everywhere.
Yeah, I just like.
Make a statement.
I'd like to see what our home prices are gonna be like in a short period of time here. Banks find out.
Okay, it's your turn, folks.
Quick question, so, point 12.
Okay.
Any vendor or delivery person making normally scheduled deliveries to the Procter General store, including fuel pumps. I'm curious as to why the Procter General store gets a special provision for deliveries.
The reason is, because they are a service that's currently available to the members of Harrop and Glade, and that's part of the, Harrop and Proctor. That's part of the reason why they only have 8 round trip crossings a day,
Okay,
instead of
so,
16.
They have a bigger ferry. They
Ferry.
more cars.
3 times the size.
Is
They have a
it
bigger
be-
population.
so that small business is permitted to continue to stay in business. The small businesses that either operate out of Glade, or people who own them and have to leave Glade to go and operate them,
Okay,
they
just
are
hang on a
going to
second.
suffer.
Just wait a second. Gentlemen, if you wanna talk, please go outside then, thanks.
So one small business gets a pass, but the small business owners in here don't?
Listen, if you're asking me the question, I didn't make that ruling, that was the labor board that made that ruling. So, we didn't have a say in that matter.
Okay, we're coming around this way now, so yes, please.
So, Andy, I know that Glade Facebook has listed some, thank you, Lee, so if you're still here, some of the people we can contact, but maybe you can provide us with people as well. Obviously, we need to be talking to the Labor Relations Board,
Well,
however we can.
there have been people that have been sending material to the LRB, and, yeah,
Not material, we need to annoy you.
I could do something and basically you could have a pretty big CC list, right? Which wouldn't hurt. And would do the prep, so I'll work on that.
And we
if
prefer
I
the
could make a
bullseye as
suggestion.
opposed to something way out in the circle.
Oh, yeah.
If I could make a suggestion.
Sure.
We met with the folks from Harrop and Proctor
Yeah.
a few days ago. They're very organized,
Yeah.
they have all the contact information, they have strategies in place, and they have actions that they're planning. I would encourage you to pay attention to what they're doing.
We're doing that right now, so I'm working with, actually Cheryl's out of the country. Josh Schmank is the person I'm dealing with, he's her alternate director. Their group that they have is the East Kootenai Lakeshore group that did the Queens Bay stuff and everything else, so that group is still operational. We are sharing ideas, we're coming up with stuff here that they have not thought about. That's bigger than what they're doing.
All we need to know is how to become an essential service, how to
And
get that installed.
that's you get the piece that, we're working on something that they haven't even thought of yet. And because some of us are labor law people, like me,
Right on.
okay? So, and I am. Yes.
Hey, previously we had an issue that came up, and we ended up raising a bunch of money and hiring a lawyer. There was a time when we had our own private ferry and nobody was involved in it except the people that lived here. Now, I understand at one point in time, they built the dam and decided because they flooded the valley, they would provide a service in perpetuity for our community because of the dam and all that. Now, somebody has fallen down and allowed this to happen, and I tend to blame the government because if they knew that, understood that Westbridge or anybody else should not get a contract that allows them to shut down our service.
Liberal government
So-
privatized in 2005. That's when it happened.
So-
Before that, it was part of the
So I
highway
think
system.
instead of venting all our anger at the union and the company, we need to look at the government signing a new contract in 5 years with whoever's gonna provide the service and allowing them to stop that service. That should never happen again, and we need to direct some of that anger towards our government.
I'm not sure the union wants that though, because if
it's a
it
breach
becomes
of
an
contract.
essential service, they lose their bargaining chip, which is us right
Yeah,
now.
so let's not debate. So, thank you. We're going back, yes?
Okay, so Ruth pretty much captured my question, but please do send us like that long CC list.
Oh, I can send a list that's really, really
Like,
long, so I gotta pare it
like-
down a little bit, I think.
Cause I'd like to help if I could
Yeah.
help, but I'm a little bit at sea here,
I'm
cause
going
this is
to,
complicated.
Andy, who should who should I be sending stuff to?
It's me.
Well, I need a
Okay,
contact.
I'll give you the point person, I'll give you my
Okay,
information.
yeah. So whoever, and then what'll happen is,
And then will that get on Glade Facebook or something?
yeah, done. So give me your, and actually, that's all I need. I just need a contact person that's gonna get it out to everybody else.
Thank you.
Yes.
Besides you said that, the motivation for the company might be the fines that they have to pay, are there any other financial things? And is there anything else about what's happening here that would make it, detrimental to them not to negotiate with you?
Detrimental not to negotiate.
Well, like, yeah, so is it a bad mark on their image, or will they have trouble renegotiating their contract? if they
You know
have
what
this
this
kind of
company
problem?
just did, the owner of this place did, of Pacific West Marine? They kicked out everybody out of Cole Harbor. Cole Harbor is the most expensive moorage in Canada. And they kicked out all the tenants, all the people who had moorage there. That just happened. So, and they did it in the NIMO. So
What are they doing?
So,
they own all these,
I'll
they're
answer your-
redeveloping.
It's
Well,
the
that's
Clark Group of companies.
yeah,
Yes.
it's Graham Clark,
Graham Clark.
who used to be highly connected with the liberal government, that's how he got the contract in the first place. And it's a bit of a corrupt system, it's a broken system, like the fact that we have to negotiate with a contractor, and then we have no connection with the ministry ourselves, the ministry won't talk to us either. That's a broken system, right? And that's, so the pressure, we believe the pressure needs to be on Western Pacific Marine. We're doing anything that we can do to cost them money here, so we're creating fines. We're insisting on the monitors to help people get on the ferry with the essential traffic, that's an extra cost to the employer. We fought to keep the crews on the vessel, they wanted the crews off the vessel, so they wouldn't have to pay them. We didn't do that to be greedy.
You wanted to use management
Yeah.
people to operate the ferry.
Yeah, so we're trying anything we can to put pressure on them. At the Osprey, we forced them to put the night watch back on the vessel to secure it for mechanical safety. Anything we could think of to cost
I
them.
heard of a gyroscope being
Yeah.
messed up on the Osprey, so, cause they wouldn't have a night watchman.
Yeah,
They're all
it's causing
financial-
it's
these are all
causing mechanical.
financial pressures. Is there any other pressure that they would feel?
Well, listen, the first week of this strike, the first 5 days, there will be these monitors on site to facilitate traffic. At the end of that time, if there's no problems with traffic, they're gonna pull those monitors off. So if there was problems with people with traffic and there was chaos at the boat, they'd have to put more monitors on, and that would cost them more money too.
Okay,
Just as an example.
I'm not saying it.
I'm just throwing out, yeah. So listen, like, it really is gonna take pressure on Western Pacific Marine. They're kind of protected because they have a contract, but they do have to think about renegotiating it in 5 years. Another thing that we're trying to use as pressure on them is they also got the contract to build the new ferry at the Balfour Crossing. And I don't know if you've heard the news stories, but it's currently something like $80 million over budget and 3 years behind schedule, so they should,
There
they're
was
a
a
company.
decision made mid-contract to change the design completely. Or, nothing like that?
No, it's been a disaster from day one.
Okay, they
But so they are a company who should be worried about keeping their contract, but, the Ministry of
And
Transportation
public-
seems to be.
Public pressure seems to be the only other thing.
So the pressure
And
should
that
be on the
matters to
ministry.
them,
Yep.
that matters to them.
Pressure on the ministry, I know the Harrop Group is starting to demand answers from the ministry about accounting and doing audits on the operation. Well, here's a frustrating thing for us. The contract between Western Pacific Marine and the ministry is private, secret. We've made, freedom of information requests so that we can understand what the actual dollar, the income is for WPM. And the ministry and the provincial government have dragged their feet, and they're deliberating on whether or not to share the information with us. We can't get that information, so, and we know why, because the contract is massive. We believe the contract for Western Pacific Marine is in the area of $20 million a year to run these 3 ferries. And the name of the game here is they wanna keep as much of that money in their pocket as they can. So, we'd rather see the money going to the workers in the communities and supporting local businesses and things like that.
Okay, next.
So we're talking about putting public pressure
No,
on
they
it,
can keep them.
writing letters and emails, which I know I personally have done. And at least half of those emails I've gotten back with a reply of, we are out of the office until January 7th. And you yourself have said that employees are out of the
Can't
country.
get hold of anybody, yeah.
So is it ethical to begin this part of the process when there is nobody available to respond to that public pressure?
It's ethical on our part.
Yes, is it ethical to begin it at this point in time
So we
when
started a
there's nobody
strike.
to respond to this?
We started a strike at the beginning of November.
Yeah,
So we weren't starting this in the middle of Christmas.
but this new ruling was
Yep.
put out December 27th, when the Labor Relations Board is not responding to emails until
Yeah.
January 7th.
And as a result of that, we didn't start the strike the next day, the way
So,
we could have.
But
We
perhaps
waited
you
through
should wait
Christmas.
until January 7th.
We waited through
then.
Christmas, we're waiting until the end of New Year. We're not starting it until after the New Year when everyone's back.
But you're not starting when everyone's back, because everyone's back January 7th, not January 3rd.
Well, not everyone's back on it, anyways, I understand your point.
Okay, keep going this way, nobody, and in the back, is your hand up? Yeah.
I think my question's more for you, Andy, maybe I should wait.
Oh, no, you can ask.
Okay.
Go ahead, I'm fair game, I'm up here.
But I respect your right for a union to strike. I'm surprised there's no contractual clause, there's no contractual, like, the government doesn't have a right to amend a contract under these circumstances. Who's in charge of that? Have you had any response from them?
That is, the person, actually, there is a person in charge.
Yeah.
And it's within the Ministry of Highways, and we went through a lot, remember when we had all the issues with the ferry, with the ramps, with the shards of cable? We're dealing with the head of the Marine branch, okay? And I don't know who the current person is.
There's quite a turnover happening.
There's a huge turnover, because it's like follow the bouncing ball to try and figure out who's in charge of what. So we have dealt with, so that is actually who MLA Morris said is trying to contact right now to say, hey, like,
I
give me a briefing.
can't believe that there's not anything in that contract that allows the people to take back the power.
Well, they could. The ministry at any time could take the contract away from Western Pacific Marine.
Yeah.
They could, they could,
But yes.
they
They
could.
could break the contract, you mean?
Yeah, how could they?
Not
do
break
that?
it, there's a clause in there that if they're not providing the service, that they can basically pull the contract.
There's no strike clause or anything in that contract?
Listen, the law of the country allows people to go on strike,
Yeah.
and the labor board has essential service, like there's an essential service requirement in the labor code that does exactly what I said earlier. It strictly says if it prevents risk of health, safety, and welfare to people of British Columbia. And that's the guidelines that the vice chair of the board listens to the arguments and goes, okay, this is what I think it's necessary to maintain the health, safety, and welfare for citizens of British Columbia. End of story. That's how they rule on it.
And then, Andy, another thing. I don't return home from work till 8 p.m. I plan on boating back and forth by private vessel. That's how it has to be done, because they don't run after a certain hour for regular old folks like me. Now, you mentioned shuttle
Okay,
service.
just wait.
You mentioned
Just wait,
parking.
I can't hear you because of someone's.
You mentioned shuttle service and you mentioned parking.
I'm saying,
That
that's what
doesn't-
if there's a demand for that, then
Yeah.
the employer should be providing that.
Yeah.
And back to your point here, that would be something that would be an extra cost to WPM, which would help us here, so
Yeah.
you
But that
guys should be on
doesn't-
the phone demanding that
Yeah.
service. if
Okay,
possible.
so I think this is more to you than me, because
Well,
I can't get you on a ferry.
No, exactly, you
Yeah.
can't get me on
I
a
can't
ferry
get you on
even
a
with that
ferry.
shuttle service, so I have to moor offshore. Is there something in there that's an issue with that, do you know?
I wouldn't have any idea.
Mooring offshore?
Well, I have to take a boat across, leave it there, somehow get up to work, somehow get back down, and get back into my boat to cross the shore then.
So where are they putting this boat? They're just
I
a
have
ferry
to-
ramp.
Okay, so I have no idea anything, I don't know anything about that, okay?
Yeah.
And I have no jurisdiction over that, okay,
it's just
so.
putting British Columbians at risk yet again, crossing the
Yeah,
water
safety.
in boats, because we can't get across at all.
I'm not
Side
good.
is right there, the speed indicator.
I have a question.
You know
It
what?
would have been different if the hours were different, but it's not.
There again, those hours are set by
Yeah,
Western
and that's why I
Pacific
really
Marine.
do wish we had someone here. I will be directing my anger towards them
Yeah.
shortly.
It's okay, you can bet on me, I brought chocolates for Al. Okay, so, we are now, got hands up here, hey, go, no, in the back first.
I have a question.
Yeah, in a second, hold up, oh, I haven't heard from you, go ahead, yeah.
Which road did you come here? Which number did you come? Number 6 or number 3, number 5?
What's the difference?
No difference, eh? Then you turn off to Glade Road, eh?
Yeah,
And you came here, you could go back and out.
yes,
You're gonna put curfew on us, we can't get out, can't get in. Thank you.
okay, next.
Point made, okay, go to the back.
If somebody drowns, who is gonna take responsibility for that?
Make sure it happens on that traffic highway 3A.
Fireworks, oh, fire.
Starting early.
I'll be interested. I wanna know who's gonna be held responsible.
Sorry. Go ahead. I don't think there is an answer to that anyone can give, and
It's a possibility.
I don't think anyone here wants anyone to be hurt by any of this, but that's not the reality of this situation, and everyone needs to be safe and I don't know what else to say. Okay.
Tensions are getting bad now, if something like that ever happens,
Yeah.
it's gonna get ugly.
Oh, it's already, it was lead story yesterday on Global. Go ahead.
I'm gonna speak on behalf of the union. If it wasn't for the union, we would never be what British Columbia is. We stood up in line, some of us froze, some of us were on picket lines for 4 to 6 months to get 4 cents, and 5 cents, and we only got 4 cents. The union gave us a lot of privileges here. I'm not saying that you're at fault, it's the government that is responsible for this, but the union has served us very, very well. They brought up the wages, they made the medical better, they made the procedures that people don't die. So the union is our root, and we have to make sure that the government understands that. And I'm behind the union, I'm not behind this. But somebody has to be accountable. But whatever the union did, it was thank you, union.
Okay, we're going back here, yes.
Well, just, in response to what, Rob said there, and sorry, I don't know your name, but
Peter.
a big difference between, Glade and Harriet Proctor, as far as whether it should be an essential service, I think, is the fact that, they have public boat facilities on both sides of their water, and they don't have a strong current. We've got 0 facilities on the other side if people do wanna use their boats. We also have a river that fluctuates by about 4 feet up and down, so you can't leave your boat tied to a tree on the other side, because you might come back and it might be high and dry when you.
High and dry or underwater.
So there's a huge difference right there between our situation and their situation.
And they have a general store that is.
And they have a general store.
delivery.
Yeah.
That apparently is gonna get service.
Mhm.
Okay, so, yes.
probably all need as a community to get together to see how we can help each other do things. But as far as you're concerned, going across the river at night, perhaps you can have a buddy, make sure that you make it to the other side. Would you do that? Thanks.
I'll put my spotlight on for you.
I'll put Okay, so before, before we make our last comments, we wanna make sure, as we said at the beginning, and we try to do this in a couple hours, and we have, and the key thing is that we wanna make sure that everyone who's spoken, or who hasn't spoken, has a right to speak, and to make sure your voice is heard. So I see a hand up. But there are some people who haven't spoken at all, and if you don't be afraid to say how you feel, I think we've allowed that, right?
Got a little tough story I gotta tell.
Okay, this gentleman was first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I just remember reading in this order or something on one of the Facebook posts or something that every 7th day we would return to normal service for the day. So that was a discussion that took place at the board where they were doing a comparison between the essential service order that was assessed to Adams Lake Ferry. I don't know if any of you know Adams Lake. It's over near it's the town. Yes, near the shoe shop there, right? But that is a community very similar to this. It's a small community that only has the ferry access. And the essential service order there 5 years ago was no service except for essential crossings throughout the week, and then every 7th day there would be a full day of service. So that was raised as a comparison to what was going to happen here, and the board ruled that that was too restrictive, and they ended up coming up with the order that they issued, which allows the 16 crossings a day.
And in the Arrow Lakes, there was a 50% reduction in service, right?
Yep.
And then that lasted 2 weeks, and then it settled. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah.
This is a 90% reduction.
Yeah, so I'm just saying that's what was there, right? And there was no order because.
No, they had an essential
they had
service
an order
order.
as well, that's right too, yes.
They had an essential service order there as well,
Yeah.
but we used that strategy and that got the strike done very quickly.
Thanks. Okay, and now your story and then yours.
No, she doesn't want me to tell it. That's okay, carry on.
Okay.
Okay, I just wanna clarify. So I gotta go to town to buy groceries. I gotta get on there between 6:30 and 8. Takes me half an hour to get to Castlegar to buy the groceries. I'm in town for an hour or so. Then I gotta come here and sit and wait till 4 o'clock to get across.
That's the reality of the order.
So you have to throw away all the perishable groceries.
Yeah, don't buy ice cream.
Yeah, no ice cream.
Don't buy anything that has to be
That
refrigerated.
is why somebody who has a barn.
Make sure your kids are sitting there waiting
Well, yeah,
for the night,
especially,
and you have to
and
sleep
where's
there.
the toilet?
That's a good question for Western
Cause the
Pacific
bush is
Marine.
kind of, it's sparse over there.
I would, just like the shuttle bus, I would suggest raising that with Western Pacific Marine as a service to the
The
community.
shuttle bus isn't gonna take your animal feed and your groceries across for you.
I'm just giving examples of what Western Pacific
So,
Marine could be.
so what they're talking about in Harry Proctor is that, you know, getting buses and all this everything we pay for should be paid for by Western Pacific Marine. It shouldn't be the community having to pay for all these things.
For a mobile grocer.
Good luck with that.
Yeah. So, yeah, well, that's true, that's true. But it's pressure. Okay, so, I don't see any more hands. Oh!
Andy, this is just to say thank you for doing this on New Year's Eve, even in your pain. For,
Guess what? I'm feeling better. And I also.
I wanna thank the union for actually showing up too.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's exactly the way I wanted Ken to thank you for coming out. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being respectful. We asked Mike to apologize when he was not being respectful, and you all were respectful. So because of that, There are. Chocolates. I've seen. So there, I didn't know how many boxes to bring. There's 32 pieces in each one. So that's 96 pieces. So help yourselves, please. Happy New Year.